Have you ever considered that a sacred book could be more than just history or laws? I mean, what if it was actually a living system, a kind of divine gardening manual for the human soul? Well, that's the incredible idea we're diving into today. This research reimagines the Quran as a botanical blueprint, designed specifically for our spiritual growth. It's a fascinating perspective, so let's get into it. So here's our game plan. We'll kick things off by looking at the Quran as this living system. Then we'll get into the two primal forces that are inside all of us. After that, we'll see how the scripture works as a buffer to balance them out and how prophets fit into this whole picture. And finally, we'll talk about the ultimate goal, the harvest, and what it all means for you. All right, first things first, let's dig into this core idea. Seeing the Quran not as some static, dusty old book, but as a dynamic, living system that's all about cultivation. I mean, really think about that for a second. What if, instead of just reading stories about the past, you were engaging with a text that was actively designed to prune, to water, and to grow your inner world right here and now? That one shift in perspective, it changes everything. So the whole idea is that the Qur'an is basically a blueprint for a garden. It shows us what we're made of, the raw materials we have to work with, it gives us the tools we need to shape them, and it shows us the amazing fruit we're ultimately meant to become. Okay, so if the Quran is the blueprint, then what are the raw materials? Well, that brings us to what this research calls the two primal fires. It's this fundamental duality, this tension that exists inside every single one of us. In this way of thinking, Adam isn't just the first guy. He's more like the primal seed pod for all of humanity. Think about it. Inside that one seed is everything we can possibly be. The capacity for incredible sweetness and compassion, but also the potential for sharp thorns and destruction. And this is where it gets really interesting. These two potentials get defined as two forces. On one hand, you have the fire of command. This is your discipline, your sense of justice, your structure. Think of the unbending strength of iron. And on the other hand, you have the water of mercy. This is compassion, nourishment, growth, like the sweetness of dates or life-giving water. Now, neither one is good or bad. They're just these elemental forces within us. The whole key, the whole trick is balance. Because when these forces get out of whack, they become incredibly dangerous. The very first human conflict, Cain killing Abel out of jealousy, is presented as the perfect, tragic example of that fire of command burning completely out of control without any of the cooling water of mercy. So that begs the question, right? If these forces inside us are so powerful and so volatile, how on earth are we supposed to manage them? Well, the system needs a regulator. And this framework has a name for it, the perfect buffer. And that divine buffer is the Qur'an itself. See, it's not about choosing fire over water or water over fire. The idea is that the Qur'an is this perfectly engineered system designed to mediate between them, to create a synthesis so that both can exist without destroying each other or you. And what's brilliant is that this isn't just some abstract theme. It's literally built into the structure of the book. You've got the earlier chapters revealed in Mecca, which are all about mercy and spiritual awakening. That's the water. Then you have the later chapters from Medina, which focus more on command and social justice. That's the fire. The way they're arranged is like a masterclass in perfect balance. So the book itself becomes what the Qur'an calls the Furqan. You can think of it as a criterion, or even better, a pruning blade. As you engage with it, it's designed to help you trim away the excess, to separate what's essential and true from all the cultural stuff or ego that gets piled on top. But, a gardening manual is just a book without a gardener, right? So this brings us to how the system is actually maintained over time. If the Quran is the blueprint, then you can think of the prophets as the master gardeners, sent to calibrate and cultivate this human garden. And check out this amazing story arc. That destructive, unbalanced fire we saw way back with Cain, it gets systematically purified over generations. It starts with Pharaoh, who is fire as pure tyranny, consuming everything. Then, through figures like Jonah, that fire learns submission. Through Job, it's purified by pain and endurance. Until finally, you get Ishmael, who emerges as the balanced result, fire that has learned water. Just incredible. So from this cultivated line of Abraham, we get two distinct branches. You have Ishmael's line, which is dominant in mercy. The metaphor here is a date palm, and its product is the book. Think of it as immediate spiritual food.
Then you have Isaac's line, which is dominant in command. Its metaphor is the iron olive tree, and its product is the law, all about structure and discipline. And again, here's that key theme. Both are absolutely essential. You need the book to feed the soul, to give it nourishment, but you also need the law to restrain tyranny and protect society from falling apart. One without the other is always going to be incomplete.
So after all this pruning, all this watering, all this careful balancing across generations, what's the point? What is the ultimate goal? What is the final harvest that this entire divine system is trying to produce?
And the answer is it's stunning. The final product isn't some crop, it's not an abstract idea. The whole point of all this divine gardening is to produce a fully realized, perfectly cultivated human being, the complete harvest. This state of being, this ultimate harvest, is given a name, Ahmed. It represents that person who has perfectly integrated both of those primal forces. They have the deep, sweet, nourishing compassion of the date and, at the same time, the unbending just strength of iron.
But, and this is so important, this research argues that Ahmed is not just a person from history. It's a function. It's a state of being. It's that living equilibrium point where you get compassionate justice and disciplined mercy. It's a state that, at least in theory, is accessible to us. Which, of course, brings us to the most important part. What does all of this mean for you, for me, right now? How do we take this amazing botanical blueprint and actually apply it to our own lives?
Well, first, it's all about self-awareness. You got to recognize which of the two fires tends to run hotter in you. Are you more inclined towards rigid structure, or are you more about flowing compassion? Second, start seeing the Qur'an as an active tool that's there to prune you as you read. Remember, the goal isn't to get rid of your nature, it's to balance it. And finally, realize that your own spiritual growth isn't just about you, it's your contribution to humanity's collective garden.
So, here's the big takeaway. Every single one of us is a seed from that original pod of Adam. We all contain both of these potentials. The Quran is offering itself as both the water to nourish our mercy and the pruning shears to discipline our fire. The potential for a beautiful harvest is right there inside you, just waiting to be cultivated. And that leaves us with one last big question to think about. If the book is the blueprint for a perfected human, and the perfected human is the living embodiment of the book, then when does the reader become the reading? When does the human become Qur'an?